So chat, Fortnite has a maturity problem. We all know this, okay? Last week, we had a banger video, which you guys absolutely love, where we were talking about my frustrations with the Fortnite community, your frustrations with the Fortnite community, why we just thought the Fortnite community sucked, right? And honestly, I was very surprised at how mature a lot of the dialogue was in the comment section of that video. Actually surprised at how supportive a lot of people were. Like, a lot of people really enjoyed my take, and it made me realize that I think this format of commentary video, where I'm actually getting to talk to y'all live and we're having interactions back and forth, people are able to see your comments on screen and all that, I just think it's better, and I feel like I'm explaining myself better than even when I have, and it's gonna sound weird to say, but I think I explain myself better on stream, or I come across better on stream than I do in pre-recorded, pre-edited commentary content. I just think there's something about this format that just feels more raw. Anyway, why am I bringing this up, and what the hell does this have to do with the topic of this video? Which, hang on, what did I write? What did I write down here? The title of the video I'm planning for this is Fortnite Needs to Grow Up, okay? Why do I say Fortnite needs to grow up? Well, this was spurred on by a clip from our good friends at Daily Clip Central. Listen, I will know I have made it as a Fortnite content creator when Daily Clip Central puts me on a clip. Please, one day, I just want one clip on Daily Clip Central. Just one day. If I'm relevant enough, that'd be amazing. Anyway, clip from Daily Clip Central. Ninja talking about why Fortnite should have never gone kid-friendly, which, when I saw that title, I was like, what does he mean by that? But rather than me explain it, let's do what we normally do. We're gonna sit here, have a conversation together as a family, watch this clip, and then I'll give my 2 cents, because it really opened my eyes up to something that I don't think I've considered, at least not in the way that Ninja explained it. So let's go ahead and let's run that clip real quick.
Chat, I was just watching TikTok of Courage roasting the shit out of Fortnite, saying that nobody likes Star Wars and that the game is hemorrhaging. I mean, listen, dude, this is a new map, right? It's a new map, new season in a day. So I know that Jack thinks that Transformers is better than Star Wars.
Well, that's because it is. Transformers is better than Star Wars. You know, I will die on that hill. I don't care. Get mad. Get mad in the comment section. I could give a shit, bro. It's just better, bro. Okay. It just, I'm not gonna even explain why. It just is. W courage, W take. Well, listen. Okay, no. All right. Memes aside, to be fair, okay, let's have an adult conversation about this. Even though that's just the objective right opinion, and if you're wrong, you're a terrible human being, and I hope your car has a flat tire permanently forever. The problem with Star Wars, and this is really the problem with any collab season, the problem with Star Wars was that, like, if you're not into Star Wars, the concept's not gonna be as fun to you for as long, generally speaking. Now, I will say this, I thought the Star Wars season was very well done. Where they made the mistake was taking out the main BR loot pool and replace it with all Star Wars weapons. What they did was they put Chapter 6, the theming of Chapter 6, the Chapter 6 meta, the overall vibe of Chapter 6, they put that on hold. They took out all the boons, all the little sprite guys, all the weapons. It was like, nope, this is a Star Wars Battle Royale for 30 days. And I'll be real, Star Wars by itself doesn't have enough depth. It was cool, and I think the competitive players loved it because it was very consistent. It was a very rigid meta, which is what competitive players enjoy. I get it. Fine, whatever, cool. All right. I think for the average Fortnite player, we're not locked into that. We want our goofier stuff, our Fortnite-y stuff on top of whatever the collab is. I'm telling you, if they had the base loot pool with the Star Wars season, it would have been better. But I do not think that was Epic's decision. I think that was Disney. And once again, this is all theory. I could be wrong, but just from some things that I've heard behind the scenes and just how I kind of understanding of how certain negotiations can work when it comes to importing IPs, not just from Epic side, but other brands like Hasbro, and understand how, like, a brand like Transformers might collab with, for example, let's say Batman, and what's required for that. There are certain requirements the IP holder is going to have. Like, you have to make the IP holder feel comfortable in order for you to incorporate their brand with your brand. And if you don't meet those qualifications, they're going to walk away and give their IP to someone else. I know that Epic and Disney have a fantastic partnership. I don't think that Epic was necessarily hesitant to do this, but I would not be surprised if there were some people that were opposed to the idea of only having Star Wars weapons in the loot pool. Here's another thing I know too, the Star Wars community is very particular. Anyway, this has nothing to do with the main topic of the video. That's just my 2 cents on that section here. But we have to react and give commentary, otherwise it's not transformative. And I don't want to be like some of the larger Twitch creators and just walk away, pee, and have my chair react to the video. Moving on.
You know what the issue with Fortnite was, dude, in my opinion, as well, is I almost feel like they could have continued to cater to the fans and the players of like the appropriate age. Like, obviously kids play this game, right? But there was nothing like kiddish, like kid friendly about Fortnite early on? Like at the end of the day, it was just like any other battle royale.
Hold on. What did y'all just peep what he just said right there? I know I paused it awkwardly, but there was nothing kiddish about Fortnite early on. Okay. So before we watch the second half of this, I wanted to just talk about that for a second, because what did I do on this channel a few months ago? I made a video called Fortnite Isn't for Kids, or I may have changed the title now to Fortnite is for Adults, something like that. Some super clickbaity thumbnail now. I know I changed it recently. Anyway, if you after this video, go watch that one if you haven't already. I have made the argument for years that Fortnite, when it first came out, was as much for adults as it was for children. As a matter of fact, I argued that it was more for adults than it was for kids, because people don't understand this. Back during the OG days, I'm talking like even the first 2 to 3 seasons, there were so many memes on the internet. A lot of adults just making jokes about, since you women know so much, which one of these do you drink first? And it showed like minis and big pots, right? That was the culture. People, grown-ass adults, were making jokes about Fortnite. Grown-ass men were posting their highlights, their victory royales on Facebook. It was just the thing to do. Getting a victory royale was like a big deal culturally, because it was so hard. Pause, play. Now, I think a lot of that charm has been lost to time, obviously, because Fortnite had to evolve. It had to become bigger than what it was. It got such a large audience. It changed not just gaming, but like internet culture overall. You had TV shows like Robot Chicken parodying Fortnite. Like there was a mature and adult element to the game, even going up all the way through like chapter 2, season 7, season 8. The storyline had mature elements and mature theming to it. It didn't mean that kids couldn't enjoy it, right? But I think that's probably one of the reasons why I enjoyed Fortnite so much, is because it reminded me a lot of the cartoons that I grew up with as a kid. If you don't know, like a lot of cartoons that were made in like the late 90s, early 2000s, they were made for kids, but they were also made with adults in mind, because they're going to be watching these stories while with their children in the living room. Right, my mom used to watch Hey Arnold with me when I was 2, 3, 4 years old. Shit, my mom and I will still watch Hey Arnold today, right? We love Hey Arnold, but that's because that's a show that's so well written that even as an adult, when you go back and you watch it, you know, you get something new from it. But anyway, my point is, like, Fortnite, it was kind of, in the early days, it was kind of designed like that. Like, yes, we used to make fun of the kiddish art style and all that. And yes, like, it wasn't overly gory. You didn't see blood or anything when you eliminate opponents, but there wasn't anything like intrinsically childish about Fortnite. The perception of that changed, I think, around chapter 3, when we started getting more collabs and the game started becoming more collab focused. Fortnite, once again, kind of moved away from its original identity and transformed into something else. Although I think that change was for the betterment of the game, didn't mean that there weren't consequences and there weren't negative things that happened as a result of it, right? It's trade-offs, right? You can never have a perfect transition for anything. There's a saying that I found recently that's very profound in chat. This is something I want you guys to take with you the rest of your life. You can have everything you want in life, just not at the same time. You can have everything you want, just not all at once. It's not possible. Life is about trade-offs. You have to sacrifice one thing for another thing in order to get to a bigger goal, a larger objective. But anyway, I think Ninja is, honestly, I think he's spot on right here.
There's a cartoon, sure, like the graphics are maybe kid friendly, but I mean, bro, you were still eliminating players to get the win, right? And the building mechanic is what separated the game from others. And then like the updates were crazy and insane and fun, and it wasn't like they were like kid-friendly in-game events, right? Like meteors were striking, the map was changing, like insane things were happening.
Also, real quick, talking about like non-kid friendly, think back to the monster versus mech event. The way that the mech finishes off the monster is by stabbing it through the head. There was no blood, but that was graphic. And then post live event, you've got the monster bones just chilling there as a POI on the map. And then that, fictionally, like storyline wise, that carried through all the way to Fortnite chapter 3. You would see like the robot armors in the water, and then the monster bones were dug back up when we got to the flip side of the Fortnite island. Like, it was just like those nice little storytelling elements that were there. I would say even in chapter 3, like when you did the resistance quests, go back and look at the resistance quests. If you've never seen those quests, you're not a fan of the Fortnite storyline, you don't have to be, but go back and look at some of my old videos on those quests. There were some mature themes in there. Like there was one quest in particular I remember, like it implied Jonesy got drunk at a party and was like, and spilled his guts to like the Imagined or something. Like that was always why like I kind of shipped those two characters together when I was doing Fortnite storyline content. Like there's a mature undertone there, but if you're a child, you're not going to pick up on that. And that was like the beauty of the storyline and the writing, even all the way up through chapter 3. But like I said, I think that's when Fortnite started taking on this more child-friendly approach. This is kind of really what Ninja's getting at here.
Instead of Fortnite growing up a little bit, like with the audience, they just kept catering to children.
But listen, I don't think that that's entirely Fortnite's fault, and I'm going to explain why in a moment. But Ninja's onto something there. I still think that Fortnite, for the most part, can be enjoyed by adults. Like, Fortnite to me doesn't really feel like a kiddie game, but the perception of Fortnite is that way. But I don't think that that's really on Epic as much as it is content creators. But give me a minute.
I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I have it wrong. I don't know. You know what I mean, though? Because we grew, like, we're growing up, right? The people, I mean, this game's been out for 6 years now, right? So, like, I'm 34. Damn.
Hold on. Purple Camo, what Ninja just said addressed what you're talking about right there. The majority of the player base are children. I don't know if that's true. If the majority of the player base is children, I don't think Epic would risk having IPs like Invincible and Rick and Morty. Rick and Morty especially. Like, you think Invincible's out of... Rick and Morty is just crazy. I don't think Epic would risk having IPs that mature in the game if they didn't have a large, mature audience. And like Ninja's saying, the thing you got to factor in too is even the kids that were kids when Fortnite first came out, they're going into college now. Like, Dagwumi, my boy Dag, is a prime example of this. I think Dag was 15 and Dag's 23 now. So, like, bro, like, Dag was in high school, like a sophomore or a junior in high school. Dag's a grown-ass man now. He's 23. I was 22 when Fortnite came out. I'm 30 now, bro. This is something that I talk about, I preach on my own channel with my own content. I have to grow with my audience. You have to mature with your audience. And I think in some ways, Fortnite didn't do that. But let's let Ninja finish everything off here.
And there are like 12-year-olds that are now 18 years old. I think I'm just completely spitting fucking dog shit, actually, to be honest. The game just needs to be better.
That's pretty much the gist of what Ninja was getting at. But I think that that's a very interesting point because, like, well, okay, so look, this is where I'm going to tackle this thing from. Okay. Well, so once again, I've always thought that Fortnite was a game that was for adults. Right? It wasn't an adult game. It could definitely be enjoyed by children, but there were so many adult themes and the gameplay loop was so much fun. Just the mechanics, everything. It was a good game for adults to play, but the art style was a bit more playful. It was a bit more cartoonish, a bit more childlike in that way, right? But the gameplay itself didn't scream childish to me. It's not like we're playing Super Sunshine Candyland Adventures, Rainbow Kisses. Okay, I just made that up. That's not an actual game. Do not type that in on Google. I don't know what will pop up, and I'm not responsible for what you see. It was not a childish game. To this day, I still don't think that it is. This is the point I always bring up to people because I get comments. Anytime I do a promo for Epic, right? Everybody wants to be like, oh, he's 30 years old, by the way. 30 years old playing a children's game. And I stop and I look at these comments and I'm like, okay, and just have to laugh at it. But also I step back and I think, like, how did the perception of this game change so much? Because like I was explaining earlier, in the OG days, the first 10 seasons, I would even argue all the way through chapter 2, going into chapter 3, it was not perceived as a children's game. Once again, it wasn't until we started getting Naruto and Darth Vader. That's when you started seeing those memes like Master Chief, Naruto, Darth Vader, they're all in the squad together and play, you know, and playing Fortnite. Like, it was wacky. Like, the premise of that was wacky. And Epic really leaned into that meme the further we got along through time, right? Once again, it was kind of necessary for them to do that because there were so many collabs that were put in the game. And it doesn't mean the collabs were immature, childish collabs either. Halo's not a childish IP. Rick and Morty's not a childish IP. Star Wars, I don't think, is a childish IP either. There's a lot of dark themes on all these IPs I'm mentioning, right? But it was the idea that all these crazy, wacky, cartoony characters are all together in one universe. Like Donald Mustard said, it was like you had a toy box full of toys. You could pull out any toy. There's no limitations with your toys. Superman can hang out with Optimus Prime and Spider-Man and fight the Joker and Megatron. Why not? And that's what he wanted to recreate when, you know, you're talking about really what Fortnite was at its core, what Donald Mustard was trying to create. But even with that premise, Donald Mustard was still able to keep a mature framework for it, I think. And not just Donald, like the writing team of the people that were working with him at that time. Now, that begs the question, why did the perception of the game change? And I honestly think that the majority of the reason, it comes down to the content. Because back in the day when the content was exclusively about gameplay, it was a lot of adults playing the game. Think back to those early clips: Myth, Ninja, Daquan, Ghost Aiden, Nick Merckx, Tim the Tatman, Courage, Cypher. They were having a lot of mature conversations, having mature gameplay. those are the guys that inspired me to become a content creator, because I enjoyed their interactions and the jokes that they would make and the stuff that they would say on stream. But it was adults that cultivated the culture of this game. The problem is, in chapter 2, because the game wasn't getting any updates, everybody just kind of moved away. A lot of the big content creators, a lot of the adult content creators just kind of moved away. And to be fair, the Fortnite content creators, they had to get creative. They're like, okay, so how are we going to keep audiences locked in on Fortnite? We have to do other stuff. We got to get creative. So Cypher, Lachlan, Laserbeam, they started doing stuff like fashion shows, right? Which is a more kiddish concept, right? Oh my God, we're gonna have a Fortnite fashion show. Wee wahoo, right? So the content kind of switched. Keep in mind too, I think a lot of BR fans, it wasn't people that were just necessarily fans of Fortnite initially that were playing the game. It was people that were fans of Battle Royale. So H1Z1, PUBG, you got a lot of those guys bleeding over into Fortnite. You know, the Apex came out. You got a lot of those guys going back and forth between Apex and Fortnite. But Warzone, that changed a lot as well. Tim the Tatman, Courage, they transitioned from Fortnite to Warzone. Nick Merckx goes to Warzone from Fortnite. And because Fortnite wasn't getting any updates and the content was getting stale, unlike Cypher, like Cypher is stuck with the game and figured out how to like become the king of that niche. But then you had all the other like mature guys that were playing the game, they left. They went to go play Warzone. And so a lot of their audiences and players followed suit. Even I went to go play Warzone for a while. I was going between Warzone and Fortnite, but I spent a lot of time on Warzone back in the day. There'd be days I would play Warzone, wouldn't even touch Fortnite because Warzone was just so much fun. Verdansk, when it first dropped, amazing. But let's just fast forward to now. Look at Fortnite content now. When you look at the average Fortnite content, the average Fortnite content creator, and this, let me say this, I'm not throwing shade at any of the content creators. What they do works, and they are very successful. They are appealing to the majority of, I wouldn't say Fortnite players, but they're appealing to the majority of people that are interested in watching Fortnite content. The majority of Fortnite content is for young kids. It's not for people my or Ninja's age. This is why I make the content that I do, because the Fortnite community has a large, mature adult player base, but they don't have a representative, someone that's out there making content for them. The purpose of my content is and always has been to represent the older Fortnite player, the more mature Fortnite player, the more well-rounded Fortnite player, the person that wants to just go beyond the quick transitions and edits and wants to sit down and actually listen and think about certain issues that plague the game. This eventually resulted in the explosion of commentary content that you see now. And now, like, a lot of people are doing commentary, and that's what they do on their channel. And listen, to be fair, I'm gonna be real, commentary has its limitations. Commentary content has its limitations. In the Fortnite space, it's not going to be as popular as the next fashion show or sneaking into Nick A30's competitive Fortnite round, or a pro Fortnite player takes control of my keyboard. Doesn't mean that some older people don't enjoy that content and can enjoy that content, but after the 5th video, for someone of my age, dog, it gets boring. I'm not watching that. We've had this conversation on the channel multiple times here, and I think a lot of you guys feel that way too. I always felt like my content and a lot of other commentary channels' content is where the growing Fortnite player, the maturing Fortnite player, they graduate from some of that kiddish content and they move over to this arena. Like, you might still be interested in Fortnite, but not in the same way that you were before. You're starting to think about things more critically. Your mind is being open to different aspects and ideas. You're experimenting and exploring the world in a different way. And I know that that might sound crazy because we're talking about Fortnite here, but that's just the reality of people that are growing up that play Fortnite. I guarantee you there's a lot of people, there's a lot of young people that watch me now that were like, I don't know, 8 years old or 7 years old when Fortnite first came out. But now those 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, bro, man, I've had people, I think the oldest person I've ever heard about watching my content was like 54 or 56 years old. It's designed to be for the more mature, well-rounded Fortnite player. The person that, once again, does not want to watch the challenge videos. And once again, there's nothing wrong with that because kids do need safe content to absorb when it comes to the Fortnite space. And I think that if you're more kid-leaning, I think your content will be more successful. However, what it has done is it has tarnished the reputation of Fortnite in the sense that Fortnite is now going to be perceived more as a kid's game. Because what are you going to be exposed to more of? My style of content, the commentary style of content, the critical style of content where we're analyzing some aspect of Fortnite through a sociological or philosophical lens to a certain degree? Or are you going to be showed the newest woo skin, and oh my gosh, look how pretty this character is, and oh my gosh, look at this character over here. Oh my gosh, look at this person I collaborated with, guys. Wow, that's why Loot Station and I made the family friendly series. You go back on this channel and watch those videos too. We have a series of videos called Family Friendly Fortnite Be Like, and we created personas of Trolley and Brisket. Hey guys, what's going up? It's Brisket back at it again for another video, because we're making fun of that. We're making fun of that style of content, because when you grow up and you go back and look at that, you're like, holy crap, this is like watching Dora the Explorer for gamers. It's corny. A lot. It is. For an adult viewer, it's corny. Chat, a lot of you are just not going to be entertained by that. But listen, that's the thing. I don't want to like cast blame on anybody, because it's not really anybody's fault, but it's just, this is just the way things naturally progressed. And this is where we're at. And I don't think that there's going to be enough Fortnite content creators that are making mature content outside of competitive. I think competitive is kind of the middle ground. The competitive Fortnite is where you will get, I think, a lot more of the mature people graduate to. Outside of the commentary space, that's like where the majority of the older players get to, but that community is insanely toxic, and that's a whole nother can of worms. I'm not pulling the pin on that grenade today. We're not gonna talk about that one. But I think y'all get what I'm saying here. Your viewers are your viewers, their viewers are theirs. Here's the thing, I think we share viewers. I know I have viewers that enjoy Cypher, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't, but I'm just saying that there's a lot of content that comes from the larger channels that I just don't think older like a 30-year-old man's not gonna get invested in a lot of that content, man. Kids see a lot of and hear a lot of crazy shit nowadays because of the age of the internet. Well, yeah, they're gonna be exposed to a lot of stuff, but I'll give you an example, right? Nick A30, I think what Nick A30 does is honorable. You could say he does it for money and he does it to appeal to the most brands possible, which some of that is probably true. But at the same time, we still cannot deny that Nick A30 is a very safe content creator for parents to allow their kids to watch. I am not. If you have children under the age of 16, do not let them watch my content. Don't send them here. I have never been a channel for children, and I've never wanted to be. I wanted to be authentic to myself, and if I'm going to be authentic, I cannot water down the nature of my thoughts and my content. We've always pushed the envelope here on my channel, but I have respect for the channels that stay in their lane and do what they do. The other thing too is, for the larger content creators, they post daily content on multiple channels. If they're going to do that, a lot of the content by nature is going to be more playful. There's only so many topics that even I can do per week on relevant, controversial issues or more mature issues inside the Fortnite community. And we've done a lot. There's a lot more I want to do, but it's just like there's a limit. There's only so much. Cypher key type of video targets a bigger demographic. They just want stimulation in a video and don't watch it for information, which is the majority of Fortnite. Exactly. Part of me wishes I made Fortnite content back in the beginning, but did this. Like what I'm doing now, I wish I could have been one of the voices back in the early days, because I would think I would have done so much better back then. It's so hard to hit the algorithm now and all that, but that wasn't what the community needed at that time. Commentary content wasn't really needed until Fortnite had been around for a few years, and there were a lot of the culture was set. You kind of had an understanding of the meta of the game, and in other words, like how the game worked. Like, okay, live events, seasonal events, frequent updates, you know, transitioning from 2-year-long seasons or 2-year-long chapters to, you know, yearly chapters. Even the concept of chapters overall, like there were a lot of things that I think needed to happen inside of Fortnite before you started getting people to do commentary content. I don't think commentary content would have been as effective back in chapter 1. But then again, who knows? Maybe it would have been. I probably could have found a way to make it work. But I watch mainly you and Cypher for Fortnite because I feel like he's the most genuine Fortnite content creator out of the Nick A30s and Typical Gamers. I think Typical Gamer is genuine. I do. I have met TG a couple of times in person. I've had the privilege of being able to talk to him. I'm not gonna act like me and TG are BFFs, but like he is a very kind person. What you see on camera is who he is off camera. I think TG makes content that is best suited for his personality. Cypher, I will say this, if you guys are gonna make me call out a specific content creators, I think Cypher's content is, I think you can be an older Fortnite fan and enjoy Cypher's content at least until you're about 18, 19. I will say that. I would argue that you're probably not going to be locked into every video. There's only going to be so many videos that you'll be able to take of his. Chat, when I'm saying this is not to put myself on some kind of pedestal. Be like, guys, look how mature and base we are. Look how amazing we are over here, okay? When we have all the adults, pinky out, right? Like, that's not what we're here for. I don't want to present myself in that way. It's just that my content strategy is different than Cypher's and a lot of the other big creators. I choose not to lean into the more childlike aspect of it. and that's okay. I will have limited success with that, but that's also why we have a second channel, another channel, so we can cover the more mature stuff. Anyway, let me close off the video saying this. I don't think there's necessarily a solution for this, because I don't know if it's necessarily a problem. The game will probably go on to continue to be perceived as more immature. Maybe that's hurting Fortnite right now. Like, we're in this weird area where player numbers are lower. Maybe that's because a lot of older Fortnite fans just don't feel like the game is for them anymore. Maybe they feel like they've outgrown it. And I'll say this, I think Epic probably could do some things to kind of grow up their IP a little bit. I think that Ninja brought up a really good point, which is that, like, Fortnite, in essence, he was implying that Fortnite's not growing with their audience. I think they've, in some ways, he's kind of right. It does kind of feel like they've grown down instead of growing up, because I think that really comes down to the storytelling. And people always talk about how storytelling is not important. It's always about the gameplay. And listen, gameplay is the most important thing. But I think when you've got a good story to go behind it, with some mature themes, with some darker themes, it makes the grown-up player feel more invested. Because I think a lot of older people enjoy a good story, a good underlying story, as much as they do good gameplay. And that's what attracted a lot of us to the game initially, was some of the mature storytelling. Like Ninja was saying, Fortnite was safe for kids, but it wasn't kiddish. You know, monster versus mech, meteors hitting the planet, you know. Like I said, the resistance quests, even the concept of the imagined order, like the secret government agency pulling strings from behind the scenes, the 0 Point, you know, those early comics, the Batman comics, the Foundation comic, people being ripped from their realities, from their homes, their memories being wiped, you know, people being pulled from their families. There was like always this mature undertone with Fortnite that was greatly appreciated. And I do think, from a storytelling perspective, that's kind of wavered a bit. I think now listen, I know the storyline is getting better and all that, and this is great. I haven't done my research on it, so I'm not going to comment exactly on where the storyline is at right now, but I do think, just from a service level understanding from what I've seen, I think the storyline is making great strides to improve, but I don't know if it still has that darker, more mature edge. Even if it's back to where it was, like Ninja was saying, I think that there are some things that could be done to push the envelope a little bit more. I don't know, Chad. That's my 2 cents on it. This is such a great conversation. Something a little different, but I think that, like I said, Ninja brought up some really fantastic points.